I want to talk about the culture of accountability and how it differs in Silicon Valley for founders. And I want to use the CrowdStrike outage as a way of talking about that because I think it's a really good example. Let's imagine for a minute that you are an employee. Maybe you're a manager, maybe you're a director, maybe you're a vice president, or maybe you're just an individual contributor who's actually keeping the lights on and doing the work. Anyway, what if you went to your next role and you said, hey, I would like you to hire me. By the way, I took down a good chunk of the internet and I released a major bug that required a manual reboot of hundreds of millions of Windows machines. But I'm sure I'll be better this time, and please let me come work for you. I doubt that that would be the kind of resume or the kind of interview style that would earn you the role. Yet, that's exactly what happened in the story of CrowdStrike. So Mr. Kurtz is the CEO of CrowdStrike. And he was previously the chief technical officer over at McAfee. And as chief technical officer, he oversaw the technical team that was responsible for releasing a bug that looks eerily like the one that was released by CrowdStrike this past week. It affected Windows machines. It was globally impacting. It took down a good chunk of the internet. The parallels are kind of eerie. And despite all of that, he went on to continue to serve at Intel after McAfee was sold to Intel. Once he had vested at Intel and he was free, he went on to found CrowdStrike, and he's been the CEO ever since. And it got me thinking about how we in tech seem to have a different standard when it comes to founders. And we even have written it down in some places. I've seen people talk about, celebrate the idea that founders are a special crew of people, that they are people who should be celebrated for building something regardless of their faults, regardless of their flaws. And we've had a lot of really prominent flameouts as companies just can't scale as a result. And I'm not just thinking of CrowdStrike in this situation. I'm also thinking of WeWork. WeWork was another example where a founder was celebrated, has subsequently got a bunch of funding. I don't know what he's done with it. And the whole company flamed out. And yet that didn't seem to bother the people who invested another $1 billion in him. And I think that the stated rationale is that you want to build with someone who's built before. And I get that to an extent. But as someone who values understanding the past as a way of sort of shaping the future, or the shorthand for that, by the way, is Bayesianism, as someone who appreciates priors as a way of shaping our decisions, it feels weird for founders to be the ones where you ignore the priors. Like for employees, we just obsess over whether or not they've done enough to deserve working for us. But for founders, we don't. For founders, we say, have you built before? Sure. Have you grown anything before? Do you have a world-changing idea? But we don't ask ourselves, did the thing you were building before disappear in smoke? And it feels like that's a pretty relevant question to ask, and it's definitely top of mind for me because now it's gotten so bad that Mr. Kurtz has been called into Congress to testify. And I actually do not know if he is being called in to testify just about this most recent CrowdStrike issue, or if Congress is actually going to open the books and look and ask him about his pattern of behavior as a leader that led to 2 globally impacting bugs in 14 years. I'm not sure. I kind of would guess, considering sort of how congressional testimony goes, that it might be the latter. They might dig in and ask him about his previous work experience. If so, I bet you that is the most serious conversation he will have ever had about that. That's my sense, because founders just typically don't get the same degree of scrutiny. And I think that as a result, we sometimes build weaker companies than we should. And I think that we sometimes overvalue giving money to existing founders versus giving money to new founders. And I understand why in the sense that new founders are an unproven bet, but I don't understand why in the sense that the founder you know may be one that you know to have burned out a company. And I think that really comes back to the Newman WeWork thing. If you burn out a company so badly it becomes a major Hollywood movie, it probably doesn't make sense for you to build again. It just doesn't. So all of this to say, I feel like we have a double standard here. It matters. And I would like to see us think about how we can hold existing founders accountable to a higher standard while celebrating and welcoming new entrepreneurs who want to build, whether or not they want to build with outside capital. That strikes me as a better way to build companies that last and endure. I don't know. Tell me what you think.